Right. I was doing some research to find out if the the older generation, if they had been working photograph, and why they had been, like, I was looking at VG, for example, New Yorker, and first I found out that he has been pushed the limit for stage crime. I even think he might have been like a first move on the victim, so that when the police came, he had committed a crime, took the picture, and left. And the reason why I think is that many of his pictures are people that's been beat up by a professional boxer. And many of the crimes, I think that it looked like it's staged more, you know, too much. And I also think that some of his victims, children, women, celebrity, and then the big things, bigger stages. I also think that the person you think is VG is not the VG that was the person photographer, right? I think that the person looking like VG is a handicapped person that were burdened by the real VG, and that VG escaped. He might even have staged his own death. There's a picture of a man laying on a stairway with a kind of striped PMS on. I think that's the VG, right? Another thing I looked into is the Lolita film, which is a sort of, today it would probably have been on the dark web, right? And you also got the Baby Burlesque, which is a sort of pedophilia unofficial film from Hollywood, where you got children dancing as prostitutes and stuff. And it's a little weird to watch. I don't like to watch it, but they are very skilled children in the way they're trained for showing off, but they were probably drugged and so on. But I looked into the film of Lolita, and there is more than one edition. But the writer of the Lolita is an East European person. He looks a bit like Hitchcock, actually. And I also think that the actor that made one of the famous Lolita probably is a gangster, and he's probably been in, he could even have been in Alcatraz, stuff like that. So basically, you got, when you look into YouTubes of mobsters in Hollywood, you will understand that this is not business as usual. This is something else. And you also know that Las Vegas and Hollywood is a lot of gambling, it's a lot of prostitution, and it's only a very surface that is about film. And I think that New York is a bit the same. You got all the flashy, commercialized tourist advertising, but there's a lot of entertainment that's, working on the sex industry and so on. So basically, I think Lolita is a film that today probably would have been criticized for a sort of smart-ass attitude for pedophilia. At that time, it probably also been illegal, but it was, in a way, it was produced with actors that pretended or were real actors, but I think they were still on the run for some. So this about this person who supposedly wrote the novel of Lolita, and also some of the Hitchcock work. Not that they are the same, but it's a bit the same. I think that Hitchcock actually is a product of the Second World War, and that he might have had an unfriendly approach to traumatize people, in the way that some of his film is so psychology vivid and aggressive and evil, that it might have turned somebody under in some kind of trauma, because we at that time people were not prepared. At the same time, we have more filters now, because we are, like, in school educated to filter some of the film, right? I don't think people were filtered the same way. So basically, I think that he might have been having a sort of aggressive approach to what he did. Another thing about there is an actor, Greta Garbo, I think. I think I found some pictures where she is in a sort of hole up in Swiss. And that's because I know that in Denmark there is a woman called Greta, and I actually know her, some relations there, right? But recently we doubt that the name is right. But her mother, there's actually two names that link to the same person, and there might also have been some struggle what is up and down in that case, which police fortunately they're not here. There should be like having the one room and I the other room, right? But I think that as I was told where I grew up, that LSD was a CIA product, and it was kind of closed because people went too crazy. They couldn't really use it because it was meant as a kind of truth serum that was supposed to be used for enemies like the Nazis or the Russians. And it turned out that people were going too mad and they couldn't really use their informations. But there was a doctor in Denmark, and he's described as a failure of a doctor. He was not very likable, and the colleagues didn't like him. And he took up, after the United States closed the program, then he took up experimenting with LSD in Copenhagen under the big hospital in a cellar. And the man I'm supposedly think is a criminal linked to photographing in Australia, Ransom, the Beaumont and Utzon Tron case, that one, he told that his sister was exposed to LSD and went mad. I actually think it's different. I think that she was lured into LSD, and maybe there was a ransom on it. So I actually think that some of the Nordic film, the old timers, that some of the people that ran off from the United States after Second World War under the hunt for communism in Hollywood, or some of the Nazis were hiding in these kind of, naivety, artistic things. So basically, I think there is my relation to these people are not very good. I had to investigate a lot to find out what's up and down. I think some of them were professional photographers, and they were ahead of time doing this kind of psychology crime, drug rape, human trade, identity theft and stuff like that. And basically, and that's why I'm up front, because I kind of knew that something was wrong. So basically, we have the next generation, which is Susanne Bier and Lars von Trier, and they kind of continue this kind of terrifying the public, which I think is what for, in a way, But they also had like a way of dealing with their staff, and their way of getting the data was totally illegal. So basically you have like a sort of almost like a small box of crime going on, because nobody really knows what's going on. They don't really understand that this is maybe a criminal further generation, and then you got the next and the next and the next, and they continue doing the stupid thing. So maybe some of your actors were exposed to these people, could be as revenge on the Second World War, but it could also be the revenge of mafia activity in Hollywood, or the war on communism in Hollywood. So some of them ran off or were fugitives in Europe, and they got away with it because they were up front doing their stuff, right? Right. And another thing about the Kennedy family, because they, as far as I don't know much about it, they are very likable because they're always presented very nice. But a reason that they were actually from bootlegging, that's alcohol under the ban. So in a way, in modern time, there would have been like a legal organization, which I always thought was maybe the reason for their misfortune, that you could say that the darker side of the world, the criminal side, didn't want them in office because they knew too much, and they actually could use that against their competition and enemies. So in a way, and another thing about the Junior Kennedy's family and also the royal house family, which I think looked more like a media-driven thing, right? The kids, all of the kids that appear are always, very, very good behaved looking school and so on. But I question a little bit if all of the kids are from the genes they say, right? Because I think there's a tendency to collection, right? And when I look at Junior Kennedy, I think that in the same way as Diana was stalked by the media, the same way Junior Kennedy was stalked in a way that almost is barely to survive, right? And I question also that one of the interview where he's together with Seinfeld, he's very rude, more rude than I would think is maybe good for himself, would indicate some kind of crisis about what is this. I think some people that are always admired and liked, they might go a little further just to prove that they're a human being, and please don't really like me because I'm not very nice right now. Okay, they try and kick off. So stay away from me because I'm not what you think I am, kind of.